Friendship is born at the moment when one man says to another, "What? You too? I thought that no one but myself." You can never get a cup of tea large enough or a book long enough to suit me. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries, avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken, it will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. Someday you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. A children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story in the slightest. If we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world. The Christian does not think God will love us because we are good, but that God will make us good because He loves us. Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art. It has no survival value, rather it is one of those things which give value to survival. Eating and reading are two pleasures that combine admirably. I can't imagine a man really enjoying a book and reading it only once. Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps, you can understand what He is doing. He is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing and so you are not surprised. But presently He starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is He up to? The explanation is that He is building quite a different house from the one you thought of, throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but He is building a palace. He intends to come and live in it Himself. No book is really worth reading at the age of 10 which is not equally, and often far more, worth reading at the age of 50 and beyond. To be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us, we are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. A man can no more diminish God's glory by refusing to worship Him than a lunatic can put out the sun by scribbling the word darkness on the walls of his cell. Love is not affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained. Crying is all right in its way while it lasts. But you have to stop sooner or later, and then you still have to decide what to do. I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about Him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept His claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic, on the level with the man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was, and is, the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God, but let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. I have learned now that while those who speak about one's miseries usually hurt, those who keep silence hurt more. Atheism turns out to be too simple. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should never have found out that it has no meaning. God can't give us peace and happiness apart from himself because there is no such thing. It is a good rule after reading a new book, never to allow yourself another new one till you have read an old one in between. I'm on Aslan's side even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as like an Narnian as I can even if there isn't any Narnia. You can make anything by writing. No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear. He died not for men, but for each man. If each man had been the only man made, he would have done no less. The homemaker has the ultimate career. All other careers exist for one purpose only, and that is to support the ultimate career. Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also more hard to bear. The frequent attempts to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It is easier to say my tooth is aching than to say my heart is broken. What draws people to be friends is that they see the same truth. They share it. It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. I didn't go to religion to make me happy. I always knew a bottle of port would do that. If you want a religion to make you feel really comfortable, I certainly don't recommend Christianity. Even in literature and art, no man who bothers about originality will ever be original, whereas if you simply try to tell the truth, without caring tuppence how often it has been told before, you will, 9 times out of 10, become original without ever having noticed it. Courage, dear heart. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. Critics who treat adult as term of approval, instead of as a merely descriptive term, cannot be adult themselves. To be concerned about being grown up, to admire the grown-up because it is grown up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish, these things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things ought to want to grow. but to carry on into middle life or even into early manhood, this concern about being adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. Love is something more stern and splendid than mere kindness. What you see and what you hear depends a great deal on where you are standing. It also depends on what sort of person you are. Education without values, as useful as it is, seems rather to make man a more clever devil. God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way. "It isn't Narnia, you know," sobbed Lucy. "It's you. We shan't meet you there. And how can we live, never meeting you?" "But you shall meet me, dear one," said Aslan. "Are you there too, sir?" said Edmund. "I am," said Aslan. "But there I have another name. You must learn to know me by that name. This was the very reason why you were brought to Narnia, that by knowing me here for a little, you may know me better there." "I know now, Lord, why you utter no answer. You are yourself the answer. Before your face questions die away. What other answer would suffice? If you look for truth, you may find comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you will not get either comfort or truth, only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin, and in the end, despair. A proud man is always looking down on things and people, and, of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. To have faith in Christ means, of course, trying to do all that he says. There would be no sense in saying you trusted a person if you would not take his advice. Thus, if you have really handed yourself over to him, it must follow that you are trying to obey him. But trying in a new way, a less worried way. Not doing these things in order to be saved, but because he has begun to save you already. Not hoping to get to heaven as a reward for your actions, but inevitably wanting to act in a certain way because a first faint gleam of heaven is already inside you. Now the trouble about trying to make yourself stupider than you really are is that you very often succeed. There are only two kinds of people in the end, those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, in the end, "Thy will be done." All that are in hell, choose it. Without that self-choice there could be no hell. No soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. Those who seek find. Those who knock it is opened. We meet no ordinary people in our lives. She's the sort of woman who lives for others. You can tell the others by their hunted expression. Things never happen the same way twice. There was a boy called Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it. "That's the worst of girls," said Edmund to Peter and the dwarf. "They never can carry a map in their heads." "That's because our heads have something inside them," said Lucy. In friendship, we think we have chosen our peers. In reality, a few years difference in the dates of our births, a few more miles between certain houses, The choice of one university instead of another, the accident of a topic being raised or not raised at a first meeting, any of these chances might have kept us apart. But, for a Christian, there are, strictly speaking, no chances. A secret master of ceremonies has been at work. Christ, who said to the disciples, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you," can truly say to every group of Christian friends, "Ye have not chosen one another, but I have chosen you for one another." The friendship is not a reward for our discriminating and good taste and finding one another out. It is the instrument by which God reveals to each of us the beauties of others. The great thing to remember is that though our feelings come and go, God's love for us does not. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. And out of that hopeless attempt has come nearly all that we call human history: money, poverty, ambition, war, prostitution, classes, empires, slavery, the long terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. I think that if God forgives us, we must forgive ourselves. Otherwise, it is almost like setting up ourselves as a higher tribunal than Him. Miracles are a retelling in small letters of the very same story which is written across the whole world in letters too large for some of us to see.